Hello Nurgul, this is my feedback to your presentation. First of all, make sure your submission, the final submission, is in PowerPoint. Now, let's look at the presentation here. Good slide design. The first slide is quite good. You've used the university template, nice. Now in your outline, if you go back to the guidelines, you will see that there should be a section about yourself. So it really should be about self-presentation. So it's about your interests, your ambitions, your future goals as a researcher, your interest in that particular research. So in fact, that is half of your presentation. Go to the guidelines to check exactly what you need to include. You will see there's several sections you need to include. The first 3 minutes is about you, and this should be in the presentation as well. So you can put that in the outline here. Then, immediately after that, you have another section of 3 minutes, which is a discussion of your sources. And you can say in your slide titles, you can say discussion of source 1 or whatever, source 1, and talk about that source. The next slide could be source 2 and talk about that source. You can only talk about 2 sources, no more. But even when you talk about your sources, it's not really so much based on about content. It's more about how these sources helped shape your interest in the topic. So you could say things like, this source was very valuable to me as it gave me direction in my research. Before that, I was researching these kinds of concepts. Once I read this source, I realized that I should be doing something different, and I started researching that particular type of area in my field. So that's how you discuss your sources. And whatever you say in that presentation, it should be, the target audience is really non-specialists, so there shouldn't be so much technical terminology. Nothing that non-specialists would not be able to understand. It should be very simple and very clear. So here, from what I could see in your presentation, it's very much centered around content. You're talking about an issue, but really you should be talking about yourself, your research interests, your ambitions, your goals, and even with the sources, they should be related to you. This source helped guide me to research that particular idea. When you discuss those concepts, just make sure it's really use simple terminology. So you can talk more about the impact on society, things that non-specialists would be able to appreciate. So that would be the second segment, the second 3-minute segment in your presentation. And then you have 1 minute for conclusion. You could talk a little bit more about the importance of the issue, general conclusions which non-specialists will understand, and then you have 3 minutes for Q&A, and that's your presentation. There is not enough time to explain technical concepts in detail. You should include one visual aid, but that visual aid should be very clear. It should be simple and very clear to use and to see. So let's go back here one by one. Here it's just too small, the font, right? Now, I think it's an interesting idea to discuss COVID-19, but I don't know, will you have time to go into all the details of the history? Instead, you could just say major phases. Very, very simple slide design. Here, the letters are just too small, all these letters. So I'm not very sure that you can just say all these different strands. You could just dumb it down, make the information very simple. You could say there are 17 different strands or whatever. Just simple, because there's just a lot going on here. And the letters are too small. It will be hard for people to read this. Not to mention, it's very difficult to understand these, the terms here and the abbreviations. This slide is even worse. Smudgy, small letters, very busy. It's very hard to understand. This is better. This is much better. But again, all of your presentation is content driven, and it really should be about other things, about you, yourself, not so much about the issue. It's a very interesting topic. So you can choose some of this content, but remember, a lot of it is really about you and your research interests and your future goals. And then the slide title should clearly say source 1, say what the source is. So for instance, you can say Khan et al. Was a very important source for me because it helped me realize whatever, you know. That's how you're going to do it. And you really need one slide on one visual aid only. You can include more if you want to, but whatever visual aids include, they should be clear and simple, more like this one and not like this one. Here again, small letters, very difficult to see what is going on here. Almost practically impossible. The letters are very small. Another thing you should avoid is continuous horizontal chunks of text like that. Instead, just use bullet points. Vertical, very short bullet points, because you don't want your audience to be reading your slides while you're talking. Okay? Here, this is again a very busy slide, very hard to work with. There's just too much here. You can include some of this information for sure, but again, you don't have much time. Although these symptoms, these are things that people can relate to. Any non-specialist can understand the complications in the nervous system. So just make bullet points out of this, right? People will get lost. Your presentation is more designed for a kind of a 10 to 15 minute presentation, but here you only have 3 minutes because you really have 3 minutes for yourself and then 3 minutes to discuss the issues. And even when you discuss the issues, you're discussing sources and how they helped shape your interest. Even that is not about content so much. And this is your reference list. Now, you can just say Q&A. You do not need a thank you slide. So instead of a thank you slide, just have a Q&A slide saying questions or something like that, or just Q&A. And that could be your presentation. So you have a bit of rethinking to do. Go back to the guidelines. They say very clearly what you need to include. And it breaks it down by the timeline. 3 minutes for this, 3 minutes for that, 1 minute for conclusion, and 3 minutes for Q&A, and that's your presentation, right? Not so much about content, mostly about you. Okay, I hope this is helpful to you, Nurgul. Good luck.